What's up,
Wow.
everybody? How's it going?
Damn, that's a pretty tight opening, man.
Like that, huh?
Yeah, it makes me feel like we're legit.
I know, man. We got because we groovy, man. We groovy.
You know what though? I don't know how many people are going to be expecting to see a handsome cheetah, and then they get this. They're going to like, wait a minute, is this bait and switch here or what? I came here for the cheetah and owl, and then I got that.
Yeah, stuff happens,
Oh. Someone throwing. All right, someone throwing a bat. That's the sign of Dracula. All right, I love that. I love that.
Yes,
Uh,
indeed.
Hi, John. Hey, Hobbs. Uh, wow. Welcome to the Midnight Society.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's see. Yeah, a whole bunch of people are all on in.
Well, good, and we're glad that they're. Hi, Katie. Hi, Mrs. Dracula. Mrs. Lucard. uh, how was your week, man?
It was interesting. Pretty good though. Pretty good.
People are probably wondering. People are going to probably wonder what happened to our third cohort. But last I heard, I thought Karen said she was going to take a fact-finding trip up to Camp Crystal Lake. I haven't heard anything back from her since. I don't know. Have you?
Oh, she may have gotten lost.
Yeah. Well, didn't she ever? Doesn't she know she should never hike alone?
Very true.
Uh,
Very, very true. Star-Lord's in the house too. All right.
And so is our good friend Jeffrey G Cap.
Yep.
Or in this case, probably be G Crystal Lake. Hi, T Betty. How are you?
Hey, Gore's in the house.
Oh, Keith. All right. Oh man, I was hoping you show up for this one. Yeah. Wow. Thank you guys all for showing up. This is awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support. So, how was your week, Al?
Pretty good. It's my weekend off and then it's Mardi Gras down here, so I'm off till Wednesday.
Oh wow, that's right. Is it what's it called? I forget. I know they have the Punskis up here, but I forget what this. It's
Mardi Gras.
It's Mardi Gras, right?
Yeah, Mardi Gras is on Tuesday.
Okay, I thought there was something like a special day. Hold on, I can get it.
There's Mardi Gras, and the day after is Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, but isn't it Fat Tuesday?
Fat Tuesday is another one, but nobody down here says Fat Tuesday.
No,
nobody says Fat Tuesday.
I say Fat Week every time I look in the mirror. So every day is Fat Tuesday in this house.
There you go.
Oh man, do you watch anything fun?
I watched Friday the 13th.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I watched, let's see, I watched Friday the 13th. Bam, right there.
Wow, look at that. That's just spot on.
24-hour nightmare of terror.
You know what? You know what's funny? They actually, that poster actually does a really good job of disguising the killer. I mean, you think about it. I mean, the hands seem a little bit big, but that's sort of like, if you look at it, you think, yeah, that's a guy, because there's no hips and the hands are large.
Kind of think that, yeah.
So you actually are sort of throwing off right off the bat that who the killer is.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. But then that kind of harkens to the not to get ahead of ourselves, but the ending with the hands.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
Star-Lord saying his knife is leaking on the number 13 and that you should probably go ahead and clean that up. Well, I can see everybody's here. They must be big fans of Friday the 13th as well. We put a poll up inside the Midnight Society Facebook page, Facebook group, and man, people were jumping all over that, as finding out, like what their favorite movie was. Last I looked, the first movie was in the lead.
Really? Okay, that's cool.
Um, let's see, and Gore saying that he watched Friday the 13th, the first one, and part two, a couple of days with his fiance. When
Yeah,
I watched it twice. I watched it once with Casey about 3 weeks ago, and then I rewatched it. And I hadn't seen it before I watched it with Casey. I probably hadn't seen it in probably about 20 years or so. So it
no,
was almost like totally fresh for me, like almost like a first time watch. Um, Except I did remember key points,
right,
and
right.
it was really interesting watching it now than watching it then. Um,
Which version did you watch?
I
Did
watched
you
it
watch
theatrically.
the theatrical version? Because the version I have is called the uncut version.
Yeah.
So I think there's a few more seconds, of scenes and whatnot. It's nothing major.
No, I heard that too. I heard that was just I think what 30, 40, maybe 40 seconds all in. Just
Yeah, something like that. It's just a second or two here and there. Yeah.
uh, Star Lord saying that Jason is his number one. There's a lot of people who say that. I mean, it's really something else. It,
Jason is definitely up there for me. I don't know if he's number one, but he's definitely top three for sure.
yeah, he has to be number three. He has to be on my top three too. I mean, if now now Mike, I guess my favorite all time would probably be the Tall Man because he's the only one that actually scared me. Uh, but I think Jason probably have to be, three, maybe three. Um, I like God, maybe even two, because he has lasted a long time, and the fight with Freddy was pretty badass.
Well, if you go by the years from the movie, he died in 1957, and they don't tell you how old he is in the movie. So I'm assuming he's around 10, or between 8 and 12.
Yeah, that was really something that was really perplexing because it's like if he died in 1957, right, and then they show where Alice is in the boat. Don't going to get ahead of ourselves. Um, but then when she comes out and and he jumps at her, he looks about 12 right there.
Right.
He looks about 12, but we also know too that's her nightmare. That's not reality. It's just that's what she dreamed of.
At least according to this movie.
Right. Uh wow. Okay. Friday has to be the only slasher to start without the main killer to start off. Yeah. Uh. Yeah. He's an untruthable stopping killing machine.
Yep.
He was almost stopped. He was almost stopped twice, if I'm not mistaken. Right. One by the telekinetic, and then two in Jason X. And Jason X, he should have been done. I mean, he got messed up the worst in the whole series in Jason X.
Well,
But
part
you're right.
part four as well, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about. I mean, how long had it been before you sat down and watched the movie? What do you remember about it? When you probably watched it probably more than I did.
Yeah, I used to watch it. It used to come on like USA a lot when I was a kid. So like, yeah, I'd watch it pretty much, every couple of weekends. Um, the, I mean, I do remember most of it. There's just a couple little like not major details, but more delve deep details that I just never noticed before. Like there's a lot of foreshadowing, which I never ever realized. Almost about half the people, their deaths are completely foreshadowed, which I
Yeah,
found very interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, you're right.
yeah. Like
Um,
like the girl, what's her name, Brenda, bringing the archery target to the
right.
thing. and that's where she dies.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoiler.
Whoops. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and then the couple in the bed, and then that's where they died. I thought the one that caught, well, let's just get into it. We want to
Yeah,
get into this because we're going to we don't want to pick apart the movie till afterwards, so let's get into it.
yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
so, the movie starts out, pretty interesting enough. You see something that you don't see today, and that is a young girl hitchhiking. Um, you know, Now, I don't know how old some of the people in the chat are, but back in the 60s and the 70s, hitchhiking, where you basically stood on the side of the road with a thumb up, you were hitching a ride from point A to point B. That was rather commonplace, especially in the 60s. But as our society changed, when people started coming up missing and dying, hitchhiking became rather something you didn't want to do. But back then, it was a thing
Right.
to sit out there and hitchhike. Um, what do you think? When she came in the restaurant, I mean, and she asked about how far is from Camp Crystal Lake. Do you think this? He saw everybody in the diner just absolutely freeze.
Yeah, because they all knew. It's kind of like the same thing with what was the cabin fever? Like they're all like, wait, what? That was sort of the beginning to me of like the Crazy Ralph and the big warning. But it wasn't as intense as Crazy Ralph, I guess you could say.
Right, right. Well, it's funny because it's like
Tiffany.
when Annie walked in the diner, it was like the way they said it didn't seem like it wanted to make it seem like it was just all of a sudden things were picking up, But to me, the way they all reacted, it makes you wonder if there had already been earlier victims. And two, wouldn't they have mentioned the incident to her? I mean, because they all looked totally haunted by it, like because he saw the opening movie, he saw the opening scene where the two counselors were killed.
Right.
But for some reason, I just didn't think that they were the only ones killed. I thought that maybe there had been some other people as well.
So later on in the movie that they do mention the two killed in 1958, which is what we see in the very first thing is that's what we see. Then it jumps to present day, which we
Right.
assume is 1980 because that's when the movie came out. But I lost my train of thought. But wait, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so in the very beginning, when Annie's walking around town, if you listen to the radio guy, he says it's Black Cat Day in Crystal Lake, which I thought was interesting. And it happens to be Friday the 13th in June 13th. So I assume it takes place June 13th, 1980 is approximately when this movie takes place. Now, what was your question?
My question is the way. Okay. Let's just say that that incident happened in 1957. Okay, so that's 23 years ago. Okay, so it just seemed to me like their reaction to that, the reactions were so like fresh, like what the hell? It just seemed to me it's like if there had been the only incident in the past 23 years, I don't necessarily think that they would have froze everybody in place like they did. It sort of gave me the idea that there have been some shenanigans that have been going on between 1957 and 1980. It sort of makes you wonder about that.
Yeah, you would think. I do have a theory, though, that we'll get to when we get to that point. I'll tell you the theory that I have.
All right.
Put it that way. I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves.
So I mean, she was going to be the cook, so she was going to get there early, right, before the rest of the counselors. Of course, they go out and there's Crazy Ralph. telling them, she's never coming back, and the trucker seemed, the local trucker seemed really, he was just pissed off. I guess Ralph had been, again, it goes back to what I said before. It's like, do you think Ralph was just sitting there for 23 years waiting for the first person to say, "Where's Camp Crystal Lake?" to jump out and do that? It seems to me like Ralph had been doing that a lot. They were used to him, and I just, again, it just reinforces the fact that maybe there had been other shenanigans going on there, and that's why Ralph kept on saying what he was saying.
Right.
I mean, you don't know. You get the feeling that maybe some other people went camping and didn't come home, because the way the Ralph was, like, you're
Very
going out.
possible.
Huh?
Yeah,
Good
that's
luck.
very possible.
Hey, Mr. Bones.
The Bones.
So I think that once that happened, and then she got the ride from the truck driver, he was very nice. He was very nice. He shielded her from Ralph, and she was very nice. And then, he drove her to where she, as far as he could get her to, and then dropped her off. I think the first clue about how this movie was going to go happened right away, but we just didn't see it. I don't know if he saw that or not, but I thought that the part about where Annie got picked up by the Jeep. What are your thoughts about that? What did you think when she got, the Jeep came over and picked her up?
Yeah, the whole Jeep thing is pretty interesting because Steve Christie, the guy that's trying to reopen the camp, also has the same Jeep. So, which of course, we find that out right after, but still. Yeah, I mean, with the way the killer was driving, or whoever was driving, you could tell they were a little off, at least to me, because they were driving, they were flying,
yeah,
down those streets. So, like, one, they knew the area really well, obviously.
Yeah.
And two, they were a little, not quite all there. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was a warning.
Looking back at it, hey, Ariel. Yeah, I love the background too. Welcome,
Thank
Ariel. Glad you're here. Yeah, when I saw the Jeep, and I'm thinking, I'm watching that, and you're right. I mean, that Jeep was hauling ass, trying to catch up. It makes you sort of think that the killer was already in the diner, had either been in the diner or had out on the street. They saw. I mean, they had to hear whatever was being said. Maybe whether inside the diner itself or outside, where Crazy Ralph was, basically saying, that was a pretty little heated exchange. If you were just casually walking by, you would have heard that. Right. And the fact that she got in there and then the Jeep rocketed down after Annie. But really what got me was how she opened the door, and she had no fear. She opened the door and said, "Oh, thank you for letting me in." Now, most girls would not do that with a male. It would be some trepidation. It'd be sort of like,
okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So, but she had no fear. She just opened the door. "Oh, thank you." Just jumped right in. And I'm going, looking back at that, I'm going like, yeah, because I don't know any girl that would have done that. They would have just, not just any guy, because you just don't know. Even back in the 80s, you still had to have a little sense of caution. But of course, right. I think what it is like, I think we were just conditioned that it was going to be a guy. And you're right, it could have been Steve. But right. She didn't call him Steve, like she would have known him because he hired her.
Possibly, yeah.
So then they take off. And then they don't go down the right route, and then she starts panicking. I mean, that was really that was probably the real first really scary moment in the movie for me. Yeah,
and the whole stalking through the woods and stuff. That
Yeah. I mean,
definitely.
you're right. Whoever the person was, they knew those woods very, very well, very well.
And
He
then
could,
Gore saying Annie was his favorite character. Yeah, I actually really like Annie too for the little tiny bit that she's in.
yeah,
She's very likable, and
she really,
yeah,
yeah. It really was a different time back there, huh, Keith? I mean, I don't think people, the younger fans, they probably don't really know how prevalent hitchhiking was.
yeah,
In that you could actually go out there and hitchhike without the fear, without the overwhelming fear that something could happen to you. Now you wouldn't even think about it.
no,
I can't tell you the last time I actually saw someone actually hitchhiking. I can't tell you when.
yeah.
Um,
It's been a while.
so there they are in the woods. Obviously, the killer knows the woods really, really well. Annie got banged up when she jumped out of that Jeep, which is why she was not able to outrun her. I mean, not only did she not know the woods, but she was also hurt,
Right.
and so she couldn't outrun her, and that even the playing field too. So they were able to show the killer being able to catch her, and yeah, her death was really sad. I mean, it was pretty
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
And I think what really surprised me was, I don't know. To me, I just expected to be a little bit more, just a little bit more. You think that, you see that, you think you'd just be like grabbing anything to throw at him, like to get away, to back off. But she just actually just stood there in shock and let that happen to her. And it was sad to see. It was like, damn, that's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And then great effects by Tom Savini as usual.
oh, Tom Savini. Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about Tom later on because Tom got hired um, for another movie. He got hired for Friday 13th based on another movie he did, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
So now we're back to the camp. Now we're starting to meet all the counselors. Ned and Jack, Bill. Help me out here. Oh, Alice, of course.
Yeah. Let's see. Marcy, Ned. Yeah, Marcy, Ned, and Jack all show up in the red truck.
Right. So they're going to come there, and they're basically going to get the camp ready for opening. So that's what they're there. That's what they're there for. They're there to get it ready for opening. So, and we see the different pairings off. There's some couples that are together, and there's some that aren't. So they get to the camp, and this is what I mean about before. I mean, the camp's a little beat up, but not 23 years beat up.
No, definitely not. No.
Definitely not, right? So it makes me feel like there's some unspoken past history. Somebody has been out there before and has tried to get this camp going. And I mean, come on, you had 2 counselors murdered. You're gonna call it Camp Blood and for life. I think you need a little bit more blood before a moniker like that sticks. But it's not beat up as much as you think it would be. So they get in there and they start working, they start repairing it. And you're right. Talk about the foreshadowing.
So okay, right when the 3 of them get there, they help Steve knock over a stump or something. Then they go to their room, and Jack, played by Kevin Bacon, actually jumps into one of the beds, and the bed kind of sinks in. And if you know what happens to him, well, that's complete foreshadowing of what's going to happen to him.
Right.
And we actually have a guest star about to come on.
Guest star.
Got a guest star,
fellas.
Mr. Cal L.
I made it. I'm shocked. I made it. I just got your notification. I was sitting there looking at my phone like, why he ain't hit me back? And I looked at it, it was there. I'm like, oh boy.
YouTube is so stupid.
Instagram. It was Instagram. I can't blame it on YouTube. It was giving me.
Instagram. Okay. Yeah, Instagram can be stupid too.
I tried to call both you fellas like, where's the show? I'm like,
no
Karen?
we were right ready to jump off. So I was like, "Oh man, this is a bad time for a call." I thought, but glad you're here.
Yeah, where's Karen at? No Karen?
Uh, she went up to do a little pre show up at Camp Crystal Lake, and we think that she got lost.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Echo, how are you? Okay. Looks like okay. Echo saying they did
Yep.
try reopening the camp at least twice. And each time something stopped them. The water was poisoned once, and there was a fire the second time. Okay, that makes sense to me. That makes a perfect sense to me. Okay, so that must have been in a later movie. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Because it just seemed like something else had to happen. Okay, so now we're here, we're watching the counselors, and Al's talking about how what the counselors were doing sort of foreshadowed how they were going to end up. Because we did see Kevin Bacon and his girlfriend. They were very much a couple. You see them; they're probably the strongest couple there. And then we saw the young lady. Oh God, let's see who that was. What might have been Marcy? What was that? Was that at the archery range? No, at the archery range.
Brenda.
Brenda was at the archery range, and that was almost a premature death right there, because that was when
Ned shot the arrow. Yeah.
I mean, he almost killed her first right off the bat. That was a really close shot. I was like, yeah. So that's the other one. I'm thinking who else was out there. I mean,
okay, the other one.
I think that's probably the only one I know that was foreshadowed. Other than the killer itself.
Well, Marcy, the one that came in with Kevin Bacon and Ned. She later on she mentions a recurring dream she used to have, and about it, the rain turning to blood, and she called it her shower dream, and she dies in front of the showers.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I thought
I didn't put that together. Wow, I never put that together.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, I was paying attention to everything when I was watching this time.
See, Cheetah, the new stuff you learn every time. You learn new stuff every time.
I know. I saw that.
Yep.
Of course, Steve when he came onto the scene, he actually was. They actually took him out real quick. If you notice that, he was there, but he wasn't there at the camp for very long. And then they sent him off to get more supplies. I thought that was actually a pretty good move, because it created a red herring, and then it gave more opportunity for the cast to interact themselves, to be among themselves. I mean, now and then sooner enough, though, I think the first person that sees our killer was Jack.
I believe so. Yeah, I think he kind of sees the killer kind of in his peripheral vision, kind of.
I mean,
If I remember correctly. Yeah.
And of course, the counselors are doing the counselor thing, including they're playing practical jokes on each other. I think Ned was out there. He was going to drown, and then they all ran out there to rescue him, and then he was just faking.
So so that's one of the first thing the killer sees is Ned pretending to drown.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I'm sure that really sparked their their wrath right there. There they are. They're seeing what they saw all over again. So I mean, not that needed to trigger her anyway, because she's been triggered since 57.
Right.
But I'm sure seeing that didn't do much for her for the mental health anyway. So
for sure.
What did you think of the chemistry with the cast at this time? I mean, did they seem to be like pretty cohesive? Because I thought they did.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought they all blended well, and I thought they worked off of each other really well too. Especially for people that really hadn't acted much before. I thought they all did a heck of a job, really.
What's funny too is that people mention some little bit of history here. A lot of people, when they realize that it's the Kevin Bacon being the name of the movie, coming out of the name of the movie, but there was actually a name before the movie that was in there, and that was Harry Crosby. And Harry Crosby was actually the son of Bing Crosby, which I had zero idea about. I thought, I didn't no idea that he did anything like that. And looking back at the cast, they were the most average looking, true to life horror film cast I think I've ever seen. I mean, they could have just been off the streets. And I really think that gave added punch to the film.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's one of the most realistic looking, cast of characters for this type of movie.
Well,
absolutely, 100%.
Can I interject a question?
Absolutely.
Do you find any of the cast, honestly, do you find any of them, but beyond the heroine, do you find any of them likable?
Yeah, I did. They were kids.
I like he said earlier, I really liked Annie. Also, okay, Ned was annoying. I'm not gonna lie. He's like the jokester and stuff, but he's meant to be annoying.
Right. And everybody has one of those,
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty harmless. I mean, the Johnny joke could have been, that was a little bit out of bad taste. But I didn't find any of them had any quirks or tendencies to be, they weren't mean to each other. They were pretty friendly.
Right.
I thought that was a real tip of the cap to Sean Cunningham and Steve Miner and the way they casted the film. They did go out there. They did get just average looking actors. They didn't get anything. Most horror films. I mean, even Halloween. You go back to Halloween, and that was a very attractive cast.
But do you think that was by accident or on purpose? I think it was more so.
I think it was by purpose.
Really?
I think for Halloween, I think it was for purpose. For Halloween,
for Friday.
I think. For Friday. Yeah. I think honestly, they casted people they knew. They said that there was a small circle of actors in New York, and they all hung around each other. Wes Craven and Sean Cunningham and Steve Miner all living in New York, and they said they ran across each other a lot back then. And so I just think that and plus the budget, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But that was also part of the part of how they played into it, about how they were cast. But I just really loved the idea. I loved the look of the cast. I thought that was very realistic. They're all age appropriate. None of them were looking like, I'm a teenager, and they're looking like 40.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Now, Vanessa brought up an interesting point. Wait, let me find it, because I did want to bring it up. Let's see. Wonder if Ralph messed with the camp to prevent it from opening. That's an interesting concept that I never thought of before.
Yeah, but I don't think Ralph would do that, because I think Ralph liked being the lightning rod for attention. I think he liked being the harbinger of doom.
Oh yeah. I think I would agree with that. I don't know if he would be competent enough to do such a thing.
Right. But it was a long day, though. That's the thing, too. It's like, as the day went on, and then Steve left, and then the weather started getting funky. But that was, but that's when we saw that's when Jack saw for the first time. He saw he saw a shadow. He didn't know what he saw. And then he went and looked at it. But what they didn't do was they didn't tell you anything about him. He just, last thing you see him, he just goes aside and they cut away and you forget about him. You don't even think about it. He just he goes in and that's it. He gets in there in the room and they cut away from it. They don't know anything. He's just, what's he doing in there? And then of course, they start breaking up into doing what they're going to do. I mean, Kevin Bacon and his girlfriend, and they're going to play strip Monopoly. And everybody's game to do it. There wasn't any prudes, that's for sure.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody got into it. What did you think when Steve Christy left, Al? I mean, and Cal, did you think that he was the red herring? Did it cause any? Here he is. He's in the Jeep. He is a male. He knows he knows the area. He's the owner of the camp. I mean, did he ever cause you to suspect him as the killer?
Well, see,
that's good.
For me, you're asking for a long. It's been so long since I first seen it, so I can't tell you. I can't really remember if I ever suspected, but more or less, he felt like a big misdirect. After coming off the first movie, it felt like we knew better than to the audience. If you've seen the first movie, not to expect him, because it seemed they were setting him up too easy to be suspected. So no, I didn't.
Yeah, I really didn't either, even though I knew that he was the red herring. I just got that. I got that immediately. I don't know why, but I was like, all right, this guy had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I never suspected him either. I mean, he just seemed to be so happy-go-lucky. He was stressed out. They're waiting for Annie because they wanted to eat, and there's no Annie to cook, and he's getting a little concerned about that. Where's she at and whatnot. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think they could have made him a little bit more of a red herring, but they didn't, and I guess that worked out.
Yeah. Ultimately it did.
Yeah.
Final Boys weren't popular in that time.
God, no.
I think that even existed yet, did it?
Let's see. Your wife's saying that he was a bad boss, leaving everyone else to do the work. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, he was like, "Y'all do this, y'all do that. I'm going by." And he just
I'm out of here. You guys do all the heavy lifting. I'm gonna go to the diner and get myself a Scooby snack.
We've all seen that before. Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true, very true. So during all of this, though, I do want to bring up Dorf, the cop that randomly shows up.
Yes. Perfect name.
I don't get that scene at all. Why is that even in the movie?
Well, again, honestly, if you think about it, his reaction to it seemed on the surface, it seems way heavy-handed, right? It does.
True.
But then you think about it, again, you go back to there has to have been other incidents in the past for that to happen, for him to have that kind of reaction. I mean, he was too over the top just for a first time. The first time, you would think as a cop and a member of a small town that he would be a little bit more happier to see him, because they're going to be reopening the camp, and that's going to bring more money into the town. Economically wise, you would think that he would be more of an ambassador for that. More, what can I do to help you? If you need anything, just call. We're not that far away. It's a small town; they're not all that busy. But his reaction was so heavy-handed. It was almost, there was some fear mingled into it too. Okay, oh great,
okay. I can see that. Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go. We're gonna have another incident here, and and whether he got the job through nepotism or we don't know we don't know how good of a cop he really is. I mean, him and his sheriff. I mean, how strong could they be? I mean, as far as I know, they only had the one cop car between them too.
Really quick, for me, it reminds me of when a movie is shot out of sorts. So like they shoot bits and pieces, and then the editing puts it together, the final product. It looks like to me. I mean, it's probably not. I have no facts in this, but it feels to me, since like you guys say, his reaction so over heavily handed. It feels like maybe there was something else in the script that would have justified him being that way, or there was something a scene and they might have not threw it in there. And it feels like we're missing something to clarify why his reaction is that way. Just a thought I've always had about it, because they did that.
I just don't really feel like they did. They just their reactions were for a first time in 23 years just seemed all wrong. It'd be like okay, it had to be something that was happening over, and it had to happen again and again and again. And two, and a mystery at that, because you would think after a while they would come up with an idea of who it was, because not only is Crazy Ralph out there, but there's somebody else that is crazy, and let us tell you about that person, which nobody did. No, nobody mentioned anything else other than it's just Crazy Ralph, and he actually made the ride out there. And that's a long ride.
He biked all the way to Camp Crystal Lake.
That's a 40-mile round trip.
He got his exercise that day.
Yeah, he certainly did. He went out there for 20 miles just to go out there and say what he said all over again, and then he turned around and got back out and pedaled back to town. I mean, that's 40-mile round trip. That's so it sort of makes you wonder, like, was he really crazy, or did he have a little bit of concern or for their safety? Because honestly, who in their right mind would paddle 40 or bike 40 miles out there just to sit there and say, "You're all gonna die"?
I think it shows you, it's a look into what do you consider crazy, because the overall picture, he really wasn't. He warned them. He was more compassionate than anybody. He seen this was about to happen, and he went up there. But everybody, the average person, be like, "Oh, he's crazy."
Yeah, I mean, the first time we see him, you think that he is crazy, but when you see him the second time, you don't think like that so much. You're thinking like, when I'm sitting there watching him and he popped up again, I'm going like, dude, did you just bike out 20 miles for that? I mean, what's going on there? What are you really trying to say? And I think Ralph had a little bit more going on than people suspect.
Yeah. So, do you think Annie was a nod to Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I don't know. I'm not sure about that, John. I don't know.
I don't know if anybody really did anything like that back then. I think they were just too busy trying to get their movie made and hoping for the best. I don't.
Now, I know Victor Miller has said that. Is it Victor Miller? Yeah. Victor Miller said he basically ripped off Halloween. Like that basic formula of Halloween. He has literally said it. I've seen him say it, so I'm not making it up.
I think he said that. I looking back at this, I think he said that because we don't know when him and Sean Cunningham and Steve Miner was Craven, especially him and Sean Cunningham, we don't know when they fell out on the outs. And I think him saying something like that, I think he said it just to damage the franchise. I ripped off Halloween, whereas really in fact, he didn't. I mean, Friday the 13th has nothing to do with Halloween on any level. I mean, if you look back at it, it's a totally different movie. There's nothing there to put those two together. I think he was just
that
trying
they're big and mass. That's what it is. The slasher. You could draw the comparisons, but when you really deep dive into it, no, they're not the same. But they're so comparable at the same time. You know what I mean?
comparable, but I mean, I think what the because they said that they just wanted to. They want when they made. Well, I don't want to get ahead of that, but I mean, looking back at the movie itself, because I heard that too before I watched it, and I was one of the things I was looking for, and there really is none. There's no comparison to the two. Friday the 13th is his own creature. It stands on its own. I think Victor Miller. I think Victor Miller and Sean. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know when they had their falling out, when they went to court or whatever. When did that all start? But I think he said it just to hurt the franchise. And I don't really take.
Yeah.
I don't really don't take what he said.
I agree.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with him at all.
I agree.
All right, so now let's start getting to the action. Okay, well we know that Jack was the first one to kill, though we didn't see him die. We didn't see him die at all. In fact, we didn't know that he was dead until Kevin Bacon and his girlfriend went to make out.
Yeah, Ned's laying on the top bunk. Oh,
and he's done. I was a little surprised at that. I was like, okay, because he was not a small man. He was pretty hefty. That's one thing that really caught me too. Was as also a good red herring too, is how the kills happened. It's like, okay, Annie, I could see her happening because she was scared, she was hurt, she was on the run, so I could see that happening. But someone like Ned, I was just like, okay, how is the killer going to kill somebody that big? Without. I mean, he was looking for somebody. He wasn't taken by surprise. He thought he saw something. He went inside to look for it. So he was aware of what he was looking for. He knew there was somebody there, and he went in there. So it wasn't like he just walked in there, okay, I'm just going to go relax and then like get whooped, from behind.
Right.
What do you think? I mean, how do you think it happened?
Okay, so I think if I remember correctly, you see like a little thing on the side of his neck. So I guess when he went to look, because he went into that cabin because he saw the killer's shadow. So he went up and went in there, and I guess just, I don't know, hook, who knows, but yeah, and then the killer threw him up on top of the bunk.
Yeah.
How the other two never saw him, I still don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, well, okay, they were making stuff. They didn't care. They weren't paying attention to.
Yeah, they just wanted to get busy. That's all they wanted to do. Yeah.
Right. So they weren't. Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, they weren't paying attention to their surroundings. Oh. Absolutely.
So then they got in. Then we see. I'm trying to remember the order of the kills. I do believe it was.
Okay. So after Ned, next was Jack, which was Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
Because Marcy gets up to go pee, so she has to leave to go to the bathroom cabin.
Right, and he starts rolling up a joint.
He lights it, and then yeah.
Right.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, that was my reenactment.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Was that sort of like a it's on way? It's like, here you go. That was like the first bad thing that these guys did. Like, oh my gosh, they're when you do things in a horror movie that ensures your doom. Like, don't have sex, and don't do drugs. And
right.
It was almost like, there it is. He sparked up the J, and then all of a sudden there comes that hand, and right through. I mean, if you really think about that kill, that took some skills. I mean, because that could have went all wrong on so many levels, but it was a great kill.
Oh yeah, and it's probably the most memorable of the movie, I think.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. I think the last kill is the most one for me.
Well, well, I mean the killer kills.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a perfect kill because how it happened. He had no chance at all to say anything because as soon as they went through his throat, he was full of blood. He couldn't say anything. He couldn't say help. He couldn't say what. He was just done.
And it
really was a perfect kill.
Yeah. And it was with one of the arrows that we saw just previously in a couple of scenes before that.
Right.
Another thing, the killer was very frugal and used weapons that were around.
Yes, they definitely felt comfortable around the camp.
Yeah.
Again, it's like they, and that's sort of like, again, it's like you wonder, like, okay, when's Steve coming back? When's Steve coming back? Because it's like by this time you're thinking, he should have been back by now, and and then he wasn't, and you're thinking, well, who else would know his way around the camp other than the camp owner?
Right.
All right, so then Marcy, right? Marcy. Yep. So she gets it. She gets it next.
Yeah. So she goes to the bathroom cabin. She has, and one of the funny things she does this little imitation, and I didn't know what it was from. So I typed it in Google and found out what it was from. She quotes from a movie called The Rainmaker from 1956 starring Katharine Hepburn. She does her little Katharine Hepburn imitation. And so that actually harkens back to when she was telling Jack earlier about her, about how she was scared when it rains and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Very interesting.
Right.
And then so she ends up, she keeps hearing all this stuff, so she ends up by the showers, and she gets the axe to the head. Right.
Great effect. Another great kill. Another, even though we see her, she slides down. Her eyes are blinking, but in effect, it's another perfect kill where she can't say anything. She can't give out any warning or anything. It's just like that's it. I mean, she's done.
This might be the saddest kill.
And what?
I think it might be for me the saddest kill in the movie.
I thought Annie's was. For
really?
Me. Yeah, I thought Annie's death was the saddest.
I will say that the ladies in this movie I thought were all pretty likable.
Yeah, they really were.
All of them. They I was just like, yeah, they're cool. I don't know. I thought they were pretty cool.
All right, so now we got three down. I think we have Steve and we have Alice and we have Bill.
Well, okay, wait. After Marcy, they cut to the diner with Steve.
Right, and it's starting to rain.
It's raining, cats and dogs, and so then Brenda is still around. So Brenda goes to the bathroom to like brush her teeth or something, and she keeps looking over to where Marcy's death just happened, and she keeps looking and looking. She doesn't see anything, and then it cuts back to Steve in his Jeep, and it's like stuck in the mud or something. So a different cop, Sergeant Tierney, now comes and picks up Steve,
right?
Who apparently they know each other because they like, oh hey, blah blah blah, oh, hey Steve, He's like, oh, I'll give you a lift back to the camp, blah blah blah. And then in the squad car, we also learn that not only is it Black Cat Day, Friday the 13th, it is also a full moon. So wow. I thought that was like, it was like, well, it's just the trifecta, isn't it?
Shout out to the coyote. She knows this.
The coyote. Oh.
Okay, so let's see. All right, so then Brenda goes to bed in her cabin, and she hears a voice that says "Help me," like that. And so, it sounds like a little kid.
Right.
And then she
Disturbing.
eventually gets lured to the archery range, where earlier, if you remember, she's carrying the giant archery target.
Right. Right.
And
And
then
like you said, it was raining by cats and dogs. She's out in her.
it's rain is pouring down. She's completely soaked. She's getting stuck in the mud. And then you hear something. She screams. It cuts to something else.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We sort of get an idea. We already knew right there. We sort of got an idea what happened to her. Without seeing.
It's the classic set it up.
Yeah. And this is really where it starts. The movie really starts to ramp up and get really like focused on this crazy what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they started to attack the power, right? I think the killer attacked first they used the power as a weapon to hide behind the bright lights because no one could see it because all the lights were on. And then afterwards they killed it. But here's my only question: is like how far, and how does she know? Or the killer? I keep saying because I'm trying not to spoil this.
Even though everybody knows.
Thanks for coming out, Keith.
There's always one that don't.
Because it's like, how is she doing all the damage at the camp, yet she still has enough time to zip on out there and wait for Steve to come back in?
Because she drives like a maniac.
I guess so. he's got skills.
Yeah. He got skills to pay the bills,
So now we're down to as far as people are left, Brenda, Ned, and Annie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, okay. So Brenda's the one that just got at the archery range.
Okay, yeah.
So now we have Alice and Bill left.
Okay.
And Steve. Steve's on his way back.
Okay. So he dies first, though. He gets it before anybody.
Yeah, Steve actually gets it right in front of the Camp Crystal Lake sign.
Right. And we know that this time something definitely is up because when he knows he's killed, he knows the killer. And very well.
Like, oh, hey, and just gets
a great facial reaction from him too, right? I mean, like, hey, what's going on out here? And this thing, he's just like stuck.
Yeah.
Peter Brower is Steve. And he just walks up there totally nonchalant, without a care in the world. And what are you doing out here in this muck and rain? I mean, obviously a familiar face, a known face, walks out there and just buys the farm. And so the killer puts Steve in her Jeep and heads on back to take care of the last two.
Yep.
Now this is the only part this is the last kill. The last kill is the only one that had got me going a little bit, and that is that we got back and we see that the killer's messing with the power, and she you guys all know who she is. Okay, so she manages to kills Bill by pushing him into the power grid. Okay, totally can see that happening. Totally understand that. But the only thing got me going was when Alice, after Alice is she's the final girl, and then as she's running around, she's discovering everybody's dead or missing. And then when Mrs. Voorhees pulls up, and she's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." I think I would have been a little bit leery, like she gets out of the car and she's like, "Everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right." And you're wondering why Alice just didn't keep running because she was in shock. Like, right. No, don't get out of your car. Stay right in your car. I'm getting in, and we're getting the hell out of here. But and by the time the rain has stopped too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, the rain has finally stopped. Yeah.
So there they go, and then they start going around to the because Alice is starting to see all the bodies being tossed her way, she's discovered a couple of bodies, and she knows her friends are dying or missing, and then she's trying to hide from Mrs. Voorhees. then the bodies start come flying around everywhere. And the only thing that really had me going about that was the strength, because these weren't light people.
Right.
How
Right.
did you manage to throw them? I mean, because this is what got me. I mean, even as far as hiding who she was, because she was tossing bodies she was tossing bodies through the window, and that made it seem like the killer was still out there. You never suspected Mrs. Voorhees until she started, until she showed her hand. But when the bodies were flying, especially Bill, because he got hiked on the door.
To the door, right?
And I'm just thinking, like, there's no way possible that woman would be able to hike that kid up there that door like that.
I don't know, man. There's some strong women out there.
There's just no way. There's no way.
She has supernatural evil in her.
The thing is, so, and it wasn't like it wasn't like she put the rope around his neck and was the other side of the door and hiked him up that way. No, she hoisted him up there and pinned him to the door with arrows.
Yeah.
It's just like, I was like, what? I don't see that. I think that was part of the only.
They didn't think it through.
Yes, the only thing that with the whole movie was the only thing right there when I saw him on the door like that. That's the only thing about the movie that rang false for me.
Really? I don't know. It never bothered me too much. She just looks super strong for some reason. She's imposing.
Well, you got to think of, she was, by then. I mean, think about it. I mean, let's put it this. I mean, she's definitely older than what you can tell by her age. She was older. She looked like she was in her mid or late 50s. Maybe early 60s. I could get that maybe if she was in her 30s or we could see how fit she was. But she looked just like a grandma, and she doesn't look like she could. Yeah.
I always thought she looked kind of big, kind of stocky, kind of strong. Logically, she's old, but
because Alice held her own. Now Alice may have had adrenaline going, but she held her own. I just did. That's the only part of the movie that just got me, was like, I don't see how she could have. I don't think.
Well, kind of along those same lines, one of the things that I thought was interesting was the fight between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees.
Right.
And Mrs. Voorhees struggling against Alice.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Which I find very interesting because she seems to have killed everyone else very easily.
Yeah, men. Right.
So I don't know.
That happens a lot in horror movies. They always struggle with the last one when they've killed far superior people.
I just, because we didn't see the first killing, we didn't see Jack get killed, and it's just like, that's the one you really would have liked to have seen, because he physically was the biggest of them all. He wasn't like the biggest muscle, but he was a big kid. And I just think that would have been interesting to see how he would have died instead of just kept away. I think they did that to hide. I think they did that to hide. If you look at it, they had to do it. They had to not show, because if they would have showed the struggle, because it would have been a struggle, it would have been a real big struggle, then it would have given away the killer too soon. So I get
her strong suit would be to surprise people more than likely. I would expect that, but my gripe with it always was the fight, because while it's realistic in the way that they're going back and forth, the final fight, or it's going back and forth, I always thought Mrs. Voorhees shouldn't have been able to do as much to Alice, in my opinion. I think Alice should have been whooping her, but I think Mrs. Voorhees got away with a lot more than she should have, though, in that fight. Just me.
It's interesting. It's interesting in the fight. The actual fight scene itself was that Betsy Palmer. They were going at it. She was a stage actress, and she said that on the stage, when they had to hit somebody, they actually had to hit somebody. And so they're doing they're filming the scene, and when it came down to where she slapped Alice, she slapped Adrienne King, and Adrienne King went down like a shot, and she started crying, saying like, she really hit me, like she slapped. So they said that Sean Cunningham had to go over there and tell her, "We don't hit here on the set." And then in another interview, Adrian King's mentioning how the scene where Mrs. Voorhees is taking her head and slamming it into the sand. She goes, "Yeah, she was doing that."
Yeah, actually, I did notice her like go doing the thing in the sand. Yeah, I did notice that.
There's no stunt people there. They didn't have the money for the stunts, so
right.
they were doing it all themselves. Everything we saw in there was themselves, and so there she is on top of her, this pounding sand. It was a good.
I'm trying to tell y'all, she's wickedly strong.
But I don't necessarily. Yeah, but she still struggled against Alice. She still struggled. Alice was able to hold her own, even though she was younger and, like I said, partly adrenaline. But I think, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it was just a little inconsistent. But now the final fight is going. It's a furball now, and Alice is not really sure of herself because she runs. She's trying to hide, and I've always wondered, like, why didn't she just taking advantage of whatever light she had left, why didn't she run down the road? I mean, run down the road as far as she could until she heard that Jeep turn over. Once the Jeep turned over, she could have got off the road into the woods and no one would have found her.
Why did she keep hitting Mrs. Voorhees? That's what I wondered. You hit her one time.
I mean, I would have got away. I would have hit her enough to get away. Then I would have ran like a bat out of hell. I would have ran like a bat out of hell, but she did stay and she did fight, and the best kill of the whole movie, right then and there. And how about Mrs. Voorhees? We obviously see how unstable she is. She has a split personality. She talks as to she's talking to Jason, and she's talking to herself. Like, kill her, mommy, right, kill her, the different voices. I think Betsy Palmer did a great job.
Oh, she's fabulous. Yeah,
she's fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, and she hated this movie so much until years later.
Yeah,
isn't that funny? I can see seeing where she's coming from.
Yeah, it's really weird how that happens. You know what it is? Is I don't think people. I mean, a lot of people, here you go. You got a distinguished career, right? You've had a distinguished career. You've done wonderful plays. You've acted with some of the greatest actors, and and then you're best known for being Mrs. Voorhees. I mean, it's got to be a little disappointing, to sit there and think about that for a minute.
Yeah,
it's got to hurt.
Remember pride. What it was?
Pride.
Remember, like, Cora was bad.
Yeah.
Back then. That was like you didn't want to have to be subjected to that when you were such a big actress. Like you were on top of your game. Like kind of like the old icons like Joan Crawford and Betty Davis when they had to do horror. It's like a step down for them. That's how they thought of it. Different day.
Yeah, it's like going back then. It was like when you were a film actor, it was a huge setback when you were doing TV. When you had to come and do TV, it was not looked at as favorable. So, right. When they asked her, when she got asked to do the role, she mentioned that, she did it because her car broke down. She needed a new car. And so, she got the role, and then her agent said, "Oh, by the way, it's for a horror film." She was like, "Oh shit." It's like, okay, I got a new role. This is awesome. I haven't done anything in forever. And then it's like, oh yeah, we want you, but now they want you in a horror film. It was just like she was caught between a rock and a hard place.
She went out.
Yeah, she did. So Mrs.
Ford. Can I ask? Do you think we were talking about nods? Do you think it was like he bring up a nod to Texas Chainsaw and you didn't agree? But do you think it was a nod with her killer mommy, her split personality? You believe that was a nod to Psycho?
I would say it's more. I would say a nod to Psycho more than anything else, but sure.
I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, you see that now, but like when Victor Miller was sitting there writing it, do I think that he thought about that? I don't think that really crossed his mind. I don't think he really crossed that mind. I think he was just trying to, you know. But yeah, I would definitely.
You don't think?
Yeah, I definitely could
I
see
mean,
that.
like, all right, when you say psycho, a son, the mother's killing for the son in that situation, but in this movie, it would be the son killing for the mother. I mean, because at first it felt like it was the son doing it until they revealed it, and then she justifies it by saying, "Kill her, mommy," like that's why she's doing it. So I don't know. I can see the inspiration, Drew.
I could see it. It'd be interesting to get a good interview with Victor Miller, where he's not bitter, and just ask him, did that ever cross his mind? I mean, is it safe to say? Is it safe to say that Psycho really was the ground floor, for our for horror as we know it now? I mean,
I think so.
there hadn't been another movie like Psycho until it happened.
Yeah, true.
So Alice is and give it up for Alice, final girl. She takes her head off. Great scene. I remember my little brothers got scared shitless when she was sitting there clutching her hands like that, like holy shit. I remember my brothers got scared, got really scared when they saw that scene. And then she survived. She was the final girl, and she survived. And then we see the infamous scene where she's out on the lake. The music by Henry Manfredi. Great score, by the way. Great score.
Yeah, he's very overlooked. He did a lot of good work.
Very iconic. And here she is. She's out in the canoe, and she's out. I mean, in a sense, if you think about it, that wasn't such a bad idea. Even if she had done that in real life, that wouldn't have been such a bad idea. Get out in the canoe, get out in the deep water when she could see anything coming her way. Like is this the only girl? Is this the only crazy woman out here? You don't know.
True.
Remember,
but you usually would probably gamble and just get the hell out of there. But I understand. Yeah, true, I agree.
So she's out there, the canoe, and then and of course we get the shot of Jason coming out of the water and grabbing her and pulling her back down, and then we find out that it's the dream sequence.
How you feel about that?
I think that was okay. I mean, I like that, but I like the very last scene much better, which never gets talked about. The very last scene with the music, and it goes out to the lake, and you see the two bubbles come to the surface.
Yep. I noticed that. Yep.
It's just like so. I mean, it's just so peaceful and so calm, and then you see those two bubbles, and you go.
I never noticed it.
Yeah.
The bubbles.
It's very subtle.
Very subtle.
Yeah, because I just noticed when she says he's still out there, and so that was enough, and so it took my attention. Of she says the little boy in the lake, and they're like, there was nobody else out there, and so I guess I always left with that, but I didn't even notice the bubbles. So they were already laying the groundwork for a sequel. I see.
I mean, it could have went when they did it. They did not do it for a sequel. In fact, they made a point not to do it because Sean Cunningham said that he says a lot of this. He says he commented that a lot of films today, that's part of the problem, and that is they're always looking to establish a franchise, so they leave their story open ended. And he's sitting there going like, don't do that. Establish your story first, see where it goes, and then go from there. And I agree with that because there's a lot of movies where this obviously setting up a sequel, but how many movies actually get a sequel? There's so many out there that never get one.
It don't, right?
Yeah.
But to think of this franchise and to think that they didn't even think they were going to continue it. I know there's different roads that it became. It wasn't meant to be, and some people still didn't want it to be to this day. But to think that was actually made as a standalone movie is wow to me.
Just want to say to the chat, thank you guys so much again for hanging out with us. This is really going fun. This is very fun. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and while we tackle our first Friday the 13th movie.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is just amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you go back now, like I mean, you go back and of course, that set up Alice to be, to go, then we go on to part two. But before we got to part two, um, like that was a standalone. It was a standalone film. And someone mentioned before about Sean Cunningham and Wes Craven and Steve Miner. They all met in New York City. Um, Wes Craven actually drove a cab as a part-time job. Um, they were working. They were working trying to get films made, and they were just trying to make ends meet. And one of the things that Wes Craven had to do was to drive a cab in New York City. Uh, they also were in a building. They had a building that they worked in different filmmakers were doing their own thing, and there were many times where the doors would shut like on Friday nights at like at 8 o'clock at night, and they wouldn't open. They would close automatically on a timer, and they wouldn't open up till 8 o'clock Monday morning. So once you were inside the building, you were inside, and there's many times where that the three of them would stock up on snacks or whatever, and they would go in there, and that's what they would do. They worked all the weekend through. They would sleep, and then they get up and continue to work on films. Um, but they wanted to make sports movies. That was Sean Cunningham's first. That was his first thing. He wanted to do sports movies. He made he made one movie called Here Comes the Tigers. That was a ripoff of the Bad News Bears. You could definitely see that. And then he was going to try to make a soccer movie called Manny's Orphans. That never got made, but he needed the money, so they decided that they were going to make a horror film. And they pulled their money together, and they took out an ad in Variety saying Friday the 13th, is coming. It's going to be the most terrifying movie of all time. And they didn't have a script nor a budget when they did it.
Just the name.
All right. Now, being you said you saw this when it came out in the cinema, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like stuff like when Mrs. Voorhees appeared on the scene and she Alice is seeing all these bodies and it's not phasing Mrs. Voorhees, she's acting weird. So how did people handle that in 1980?
They were surprised. They were surprised because, for one thing, how they actually portrayed Mrs. Voorhees. Betsy Palmer was perfect casting for that role because when you see her, she looks totally like a grandmother. She's warm and friendly looking, and she gets out of the car. She wants to help. She's like, calm down, calm down. I know the Christies, and she's not coming at her batshit crazy like Ralph did.
Right.
So when she turns around and she starts, when she starts, losing her marbles, so to speak, it's perfect, because it's like you just don't suspect somebody like that to be a mass killer. You're waiting for the guy to come out of the woodworks. What you're waiting for? You're waiting for a male to come out.
Right. Which is amazing when you look at mindsets of certain eras. Just like you were talking earlier about, oh, he's smoking dope, he's smoking weed, so he's going to die. Now in today's era, that's crazy to think that's a reason to die. But like, as far as the way Mrs. Voorhees her looking so wholesome, it's funny you say that because me as a kid watching that movie, and I'm not just saying this, but me as a kid, when I saw her get out when I seen them boots she was wearing, and just like I said, she looks a little physically, and maybe the sweater, she just looks a little physically strong. And then she was acting erratic, weird, so to me she always came off a little weird. She doesn't look that friendly to me. I guess maybe in my experience I've met meaner older ladies, maybe I'm a little jaded, but it's just she's never came off to me. So me first seeing that movie, I always was like, oh yeah, okay, I could see it. But then again, it's a love-hate relationship for this movie for me too. It took me a long time to like this movie.
Yeah, like I said, when I I didn't remember it too much, when I sat down and I rewatched it again, so it's like, I mean, there's certain parts of it did remember, like of course, Mrs. Voorhees dying and Jason in the canoe. Of course, I remember all that, but I didn't, on Kevin Bacon, of course, because that was was the most, like you said, that was probably the most iconic, the one repeated more often than not. For one, they can show it on TV, which they can't show decapitation. So, but it felt fresh to me. I have to admit, it felt really fresh. It was like, okay, this
Mhm.
is cool. This is like, I like the
I mean,
casting. I like the look. I like the way they did it. Um,
we
they had a
briefly
budget.
discussed. I'm sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
go ahead.
Okay. We briefly had a discussion about what Texas. You guys were saying about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and at the time, it was kind of based on true events and how raw and real and scary that was for people. So with Friday the 13th, I got to ask you, at that time, did that live up to the hype of all the ads of them saying this is the scary, most terrifying movie you've ever seen? Did it really live up to that? Did people feel that way, like they did for
No,
Texas?
no, no. I didn't know anybody who was scared shitless out of Friday the 13th. The one movie that people were more scared of, even back then, was still The Exorcist. Um, I mean, as far as terrifying goes, I mean, Halloween had come out and it had done pretty well, and it was huge, and everybody's talking about Halloween. But as far as that goes, it came out of nowhere and did that kind of money. But as far as actually being scared, I still remember that too. Still, The Exorcist. Hell, even The Omen was talked about as being more
Mhm.
scarier. But
Because
but
I hear the Texas Chainsaw chatter. I hear the original scared the living mess out of people. So I'm just wondering if this movie did the same thing in 1980.
I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre scared people for a different reason. I think people were more affected by Texas Chainsaw Massacre more because of the psychological aspect of it, more than the physical. You know, um, like Halloween was physical kills, and so was Friday the 13th. It was physical. It was all physical. You didn't
Right.
have the psychological, and the theme I remember more than anything else about Texas Chainsaw was we're all sitting around the table, and Sally can't stop screaming. I
Mm,
mean,
right.
that was so freaking uncomfortable. It,
Hmm.
it, it was real. It's even today. It's uncomfortable to watch that because
I'll say.
she's just screaming her head off, and it's
Right.
just like, yeah, I can see that. Um, so I mean, there's different types of horror. I mean, the physical horror, the psychological horror,
Hmm.
the supernatural horror. But when Friday
Hmm.
the 13th came out, and I didn't see anybody comparing it to Halloween, other than young kids were getting killed. That was probably the one connection they had was, young people were dying. It's like
Hmm.
Halloween.
I think that's a 90s era thing, the comparison. When they became more popularized and they were on their sixth movie, I think it just became, and it probably was a marketing ploy too, to, kind of like this superhero thing. They compare, they latch onto each other because, it's good marketing, good publicity. I think we made that a thing later. I don't believe they were really comparable as much as they were in the beginning. And
Right.
yeah, just me. One last
Um,
question for you because I don't want to disturb your flow. One last question. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now I've heard what you just said about that. Now, as far as this first Friday movie, what do you feel is the better film?
uh, okay, I've watched them both, and the one that easily sticks with me more than if anything is Texas Chainsaw. I can see me. I can remember the guy getting stuck in they hoisted the guy up, put him on a hook through his head. That to me, that was just like absolutely brutality. Um, the Sally in the room, her running for her life, and laughing crazy as she got away. I mean, I think there's more moments for Texas Chainsaw that stick with me. Um, I That's probably the only thing about Friday the 13th that they probably could have used a little more of. But again, we got to remember the aspect of, they were just trying to make a movie. They were trying to make money. for another movie. So, and that is, I wish they could have developed the characters a little bit more, as far as giving them a little, like, okay, like, like Kevin Bacon's guy, he's the Romeo, and, there's the jokester, and there's the serious girl, Alice being the serious girl, then, then, Annie being the innocent one. I mean, you got all archetypes there, but you really never know who they really were as people. And so I wish they could have did that a little bit more, but they didn't. So whereas Friday the 13th is, for me, this is strictly for me, of course. I mean, it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie, and it definitely, and it definitely got made. Even though it wasn't Halloween, it definitely got made because of Halloween. Because they wanted the box office, they wanted the money. They saw how Halloween did. The answer to the question is Texas Chainsaw for me. I don't think Halloween's made without Texas Chainsaw. I think it's a gateway movie.
To me, I think it's more Black Christmas was more influential to Halloween to me. But I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
I totally 100% agree. I think, in my opinion, real quick, I think Psycho is the doorway, but I think Black Christmas is it's the ideal. It's the formula. No, I wouldn't say it's the formula. I believe it's the template, and I believe Halloween for slashers became the formula, and this is what you do. I believe it's like a generational thing. Like it's being passed, it's made. I think we have to give credit to Psycho. I really do, for slashers.
Sure.
And
sure.
A lot of people don't agree with that. And I think Black Christmas, even though I'm not a fan of the film, I think there is no Halloween without Black Christmas. But I do think Halloween is, whether you love it or hate it, which most people love it, it's the formula. You look at that and then you say, this is what slashers should be, and da 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 da.
I don't think Black Christmas became. I don't think it became really well known. Texas Chainsaw Massacre hit the ground, and it became well known right off the bat.
Right, Black Christmas took a little time to gain a following. Yeah,
it really did.
I think Black Christmas's formula and their template is Halloween, though. It seems like just Halloween did it better. They they call him the shape. It's the shape. It's the formula. It seemed like they just did it better. Whereas Texas Chainsaw, for me, it feels like, where that, I believe Friday feels like it's more a product of that because of the chaos element, the nature element, the group of campers and group of kids being out there on this farm, opposed to the campers and Jason. I think they're more comparable in that way. And I think Halloween, since it was first, I think it gets its steam from Black Christmas. Just me.
Well, I think Texas Chainsaw gets my nod because they were so much aware of what was happening to them. Everybody, they were more aware of it. And as much as I hate this movie, I'll have to give credit to this too. That also worked with House of a Thousand Corpses. Rob Zombie's, all four of those characters, all the characters knew what was going to happen to them, knew where they were at. And Friday the 13th, they really didn't. They were just 1 minute they were there, the next minute they were gone. They had no inkling at all what was going to happen to them. It was just turn around and then they didn't know why or how or anything. They were just done. They were killed so quick. They didn't have any idea. Whereas Texas Chainsaw, that's what made the movie so terrifying, was they weren't necessarily killed out of hand. They weren't killed fast. They were killed slow. And and that's one of the reasons why later on we'll talk about in our series why some of the movies were changed, because because Congress got involved in horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those kills there, and like I said, not everybody got killed, and it was just more terrifying. It was just, like I said, it was, psychologically speaking, it stayed with you for a lot more. It stayed with you. That's a
I
really
didn't care
good
for
question.
either film though. I mean, now I'm different, but growing up, I didn't care for either first film of these franchises. I would have probably chose Friday over Texas because I feel that the cast is more likable. I don't really care for the kids too much in Texas Chainsaw. Just me. I don't. I don't care for the lead. So for Friday, that would have took the lead. But I was never the first Friday fan. I was never a fan of it until these last few years.
You know what's funny though? It's like, if you think about like Psycho, none of the people in Psycho you really liked either. You didn't like anybody really in Psycho. You didn't like the private detective. You didn't
It's
like
true.
Norman.
Yeah.
You didn't
Really?
like Marion Crane. You didn't like Marion Crane. You didn't like anybody. No,
No,
because
you guys didn't
no,
like Janet Leigh's character.
no, because she was a thief.
She was yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
she
she
was a
was
thief.
almost like you ever have a character in a series or or a movie and you don't want to like them, but you some for some reason you do. I don't know,
No,
man. I think she's back. I think she's a 50-50 character, Marion Crane.
I
I don't know.
don't I don't I think the first time we saw a horror movie, as far as liking a character, the first a horror movie that I saw, like a iconic horror movie that I saw, who I really liked the character, was Night of the Living Dead. And that was the first. That was the first. Even today, that movie sticks with me too. The ending is just so makes me mad. It makes me physically angry. That ending of that movie. Um, but that was the first. It was the first horror movie that I can remember seeing where I just really, really liked the hero. I mean, he was outstanding. Dwayne Jones, he was outstanding. And then, of course, when he dies, that's what made it so much more like, hell no. It's like you were just letting him like, oh, they just did not do that. And they did. That was the first one. But then again, because at the time, I mean, it was hard, and especially during the 70s, Cal, let me tell you, the 70s, it was very 70s, or if you go back and watch the 70s movies, the 70s were bleak. They were bleak. I mean, there was rarely a movie that ever had a happy ending. Everybody seemed like was dying at the end of it.
Mm.
It was just weird. It was a weird thing. It's just like,
But
didn't
do
matter
you
what
think
kind of
that's the
movie it was.
reason horror fans love the 70s horror? Because I've had these conversations with a lot of people about the best era, I mean, best decade of horror, and the 70s is always overcredited, even by people who didn't live through the 70s. They
I
love
per, I
70s
per,
horror.
I tell you the truth. I personally like the idea. I personally like the idea of somebody walking out of it. Okay, I like that
Mhm.
idea. I don't necessarily want to see everybody by the farm. I
Right,
just don't. I've never been that kind of film watcher.
right.
It doesn't. I want to come out with. That's why 70s movies. It's like it's as much as I
Yeah,
like some of them, and I do, but man, they're tough to watch because they're gonna die.
yeah.
No
We
matter
watch
who.
everybody die, but now we
Yeah,
don't get a happy ending. I feel you.
yeah. I mean, even the movies that you think that so and so is going to come out of there and walk it out. No, I mean, race to devil. Oh my gosh, you're thinking, okay, wow, those guys have been through hell. They got away through everybody, and then no. Whereas
The
Texas
Omen.
Chainsaw Massacre, they
Yeah,
actually did let somebody escape,
right.
and that
But
was
did
that
they
was
really? She was basically
yeah. I
gone.
think
She was
I think she was
fried.
through. Yeah, I think she was
Yeah.
done. I mean,
I'm
when they said
sorry,
they brought her.
Al. I feel like he had so much to say, and if we cut him off, I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead.
Good. No, we're good. I was just going through the comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did want to bring up the ending though, with Alice in the canoe.
Sure.
So a couple years before this movie came out, there was a movie called Breakout from Oppression. I'm even gonna throw it up right here. Breakout from Oppression. It's a Chinese, I think it's Chinese, um, movie directed by Godfrey Ho, the infamous Godfrey Ho, and the ending of the movie is basically the ending of the first Friday the 13th movie. If you haven't seen it, it is public domain. It's on YouTube. You can go watch it. Um, basically, the girl, I think it's a girl. She's in the boat with the hand hanging down, just like Alice. She wakes up, she sees the cops. I mean, it's straight out of Breakout from Repression, and it's so.
Wow.
I remember when my wife and I watched this a couple years ago, we were like, "Wait, what? What year did this come out?" So we we looked it up. It was like 1977, 3 years before this movie came out. So I don't know if Victor Miller or Sean Cunningham or somebody, Tom Savini, somebody saw this movie.
Director.
And was like, let's do that.
He pulled a fast one. He did a Quentin Tarantino. He just sampled the movie. Wow.
You have to see the end of this Breakout from Repression. It's wild, especially since you know the ending of Friday the 13th. It's bonkers.
And you probably could get away with it. You could get away with it back then too, because Chinese cinema really wasn't that popular in the United States back then.
Yeah,
but
right.
Now that makes me look at it different, because the ending for some people at that time was just so unique and it was different. But now that he says that, it makes me think like, well, it puts the movie down a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see that. I want to see the ending of that.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole beginning is completely different. It's just the ending.
Did they have the two bubbles at the end of it too?
I don't remember. It's been a hot minute since I've seen it.
Huh? We'll have to look that up.
But yeah, see, Vanessa's seen it too. So she, like I said, we like freaked out. We were like, wait, did they completely rip off the ending of this movie? It was it's bizarre.
Is this your wife, Vanessa?
Yes.
Oh, hello, Vanessa.
What's funny? What's funny about this is like when I went after the cast, I went over. I wanted to see, like I know that, like I know Adrienne King. I knew this from back then. I knew that she, after this movie came out, she was stalked horrifically.
Yeah.
And, they eventually put her stalker away in jail, but it absolutely frightened her. She didn't do anything for almost 30 years. She didn't do any conventions. She didn't do any film work. She didn't, it took her, she was doing crew work. She ended up doing stuff on crew. And then she started doing voiceover acting and looping and whatnot. And she had herself a pretty good career behind the scenes, but the stalker pretty much entered her career in front of the camera.
Up until fairly recently. She's been in a couple of things fairly recently.
That's a shame. Yeah. Because that happens to a lot of females in the horror community over the years. If you hear their stories, just about almost all of them, like modern day ones, even ones back then. It's a shame she let it stop her. I've seen it even happen to comedic actresses. So that's a shame.
I mean, I've seen it's been pretty. There was a young girl, 16 years old. I think her name was Rebecca Schaefer. And she got killed by her stalker. She was 16 years old, and she opened up the door to her apartment, and the guy shot her to death.
That's a shame.
So I was looking at some of the cast members. Like the movie itself did really well. It made $40 million domestically. That's not that bad. It only made about. I mean, Halloween did much better. I mean, as far as that goes, but for $550,000, it made $40 million. I know when people are going to say on Wikipedia it says it made 60, but that's a mistake. It only got released to one other territory back in the day. It got released over in England. England had it. Now remember these when we say $40 million, you have to like triple that money. You have to triple that money to equate today's world. Because back inflation. Then they didn't have nearly the didn't have the advertising budgets. They didn't have the amount of screens that we do now.
The international market was different.
Yes, international market was way different. In fact, the movie itself only did a little over $11,000 in the UK. So if anybody in the UK is sitting there going, "I saw it at the theater." Okay, did you? Okay.
That's genius though. But I mean when you think about that profit margin even for that day, because I mean we truly know when you adjust for inflation, if we do the inflation calculation, it's still a lot of money. Like if it happened today, that is a lot of profit for that movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why horror films are so popular, because they can try to do it for as least amount of money and get the highest return. Halloween reportedly did between 70 and 80 million dollars. Friday the 13th came out and they did 40 million. The cast itself, all unknowns. They're all most of them were all pretty much theater actors back then. They were all theatrical actors. That's how they were found. They were cast because they knew each other, and they were brought. The casting directors for Friday the 13th were Broadway theatrical casters.
Right.
So they went through traditional movie casting directors. They were Broadway casting directors.
Yeah. That's how it always is, though. That's where people get into acting, through horror. Most of the time, a lot of our big actors started in that genre.
Everybody in the main cast, I mean, as far as the main cast, of course, Betsy Palmer passed away. She passed away. She was like 82 or 83 when she passed. Of course, Kevin Bacon's still kicking it. Harry Crosby, he retired soon afterwards, and he became an investment banker. Let's see. That Betsy Palmer also dated. She dated James Dean shortly.
Really?
Good for him. Yeah, James Dean was. I don't know if many people know who James Dean was, but he was an actor of tremendous promise. He only got to make 3 films before he was killed in an accident. Let's see. Laura Beltran played Brenda. She died of pancreatic cancer. She's the only cast member that died prematurely.
Oh, there was one other guy that played Barry, which is the very first kill in the movie from the 1958.
Oh.
He was 38 when he died. I don't know of what, though. It didn't tell me.
Well, as far as the Laura Beltran was, she star in one of the most famous horror movies ever. But this is really cool. I thought this was really cool too. But I grew up. My favorite show growing up was a show called Emergency. Some of you guys might know about the show. Probably, maybe. Al, you probably know. Thanks, Al. Get me off the hook, Al.
yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. She also starred in the most famous episode of the biggest favorite episode of the series, which was called Snakebite, which John Gage, who played a paramedic, he gets bitten by a rattlesnake on a rescue, and it's the probably the most beloved episode of the whole series. If you talk to anybody who loves Emergency and Squad 51, like, what's your favorite episode? They'll tell you it's Snakebite. So she got to star in that one before she, when she was coming up. That was early in the 70s. One of the interesting things too, I noticed too, and it showed you basically how unknown the cast truly was. And even though Betsy Palmer had a career, like when they called her for it, she said, she mentioned, she said she hadn't done anything in a long time. So that's one of the reasons why she had to do the movie itself, because she hadn't worked in a while. And one of the things they did, I noticed in the Friday the 13th, is they didn't have any. They didn't roll the actors' names in the opening credits. It showed the 2 counselors getting killed, and then the Friday the 13th, the window breaking, and then show the writer, the cast,
crew.
Show the crew. It did not show any of the actors in the opening credits.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, nobody was known, and they didn't. I don't think they initially wanted you to know that Betsy Palmer was in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, because sometimes when I'm looking at a cast, man, I'm like, if you look at the cast when a movie starts, you're just like, oh, they're in it. It ruins the element of surprise sometimes. So,
I saw the interview with her with Betsy Palmer, and then one of the things she mentioned, which in hindsight, it would have been actually sort of interesting, is she actually went up to Sean Cunningham, and she suggested that that he should have me in a throwaway scene, like in the diner, or have me walk across the street, or something like that, to like hide in plain sight. And initially he thought about it for a minute, but then he didn't do it. I think it would have been interesting to try to do something like that.
In hindsight, it's something that's done a lot now.
Yeah. Surprise in the age of the internet is dead, I think. Oh gosh, Tiffany, no kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely,
I had to damn near choke a guy today that don't tell me the spoilers for this movie. I want to see it. He would not hear me until I had to just hey, the spoiler talk is just it's just running rampant.
And it really is unfortunate. Like you can't go anywhere nowadays. It's a pain in the butt.
Some people get off on that though, Al. They like doing that to people.
They do. People are rude.
Mark Nelson, actually, who played Ned, he might have had the most he might have had the most successful career of them all as far as even awards go, even more than Kevin Bacon. He cleaned up. He was a massive theater guy. He won major awards for on Broadway, the OB, the Critics Drama the Drama Desk. I mean, he was just extremely hardworking and very, very talented. I mean, he won a ton of awards. And of course, Ari Lyman, we all know. He went on to what else did he do? Well, I don't think anybody got typecast. And Ralph and Walt Gorney, who played Ralph, was a method actor, and that's one of the things that one of the young actresses mentioned that I think it was Adrienne King said that whenever he was on set, he was Ralph all the time. They
were almost too young to be typecast. That was the whole point. They were such newcomers that it was almost impossible to typecast them. Only just Betsy. She probably felt like after doing it, she would have been. So I guess she can only tell that story. I don't know how it went for her afterwards, but.
Well, Janine Taylor, who played Marcy, who was Kevin Bacon's girlfriend, she was only 16 at the time of that movie, and Kevin Bacon was 26.
Oh, that's not good.
They're saying how there had to be a lot of waivers, a lot of paper being signed for that. So
they're usually not allowed to do that. Wow.
No. When he said that, when they mentioned that in the interview, I think it was actually I want to say it was God, who was it? It was Mark Nelson, I believe, was who said that, and he was sitting there going like, "Yeah, I didn't, I was wondering how that was going to work out. They had to sign off a lot of releases on that." Yeah, like you wouldn't be able to do that today.
Well, they did it in that '70s show. That's a dark secret. So
because with Mila Kunis that was underage.
Yeah, she was. She lied about her age.
Yeah.
She's really young when you watch that show. Because, you could just do the math now. You see how old she is, so you can just do the math.
Now today, there's really no excuse for anything like that. But, you're gonna get caught. Let's see, what else is there we can talk about a little bit about this. Tom Savini got the job based on his work on another classic horror film.
Yes.
Does anybody know which film it is?
I'm sure everybody knows which film he did that he got the job for Friday the 13th.
Actually, I'm between two. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
Yeah, because he'd been around a little bit before that.
Echo saying there's a guy that says there's a guy who got beat up in a movie theater for giving spoiler away for Infinity War or Endgame.
Yeah, there was a lot of them guys.
He walked into the lobby of the theater and was giving spoilers away and got jumped in the lobby because of that. Hell yeah, I can understand that. Keep your mouth
shut. The nerds ain't nothing to play with. You don't do that to the nerds.
Echo got it.
Nerd too. Echo got it.
Echo got it.
There it is.
Dead, 1978.
I said Night of the Living Dead. I messed it up.
Oh, yeah, you came close.
Yeah, I had the dead right.
Dawn of the Dead was the movie. He got the job based out of that. And I was watching Tom Savini's interview. I've watched him do interviews. He's a very delightful person on an interview. If
He
he sits
is.
like he really is.
Yeah.
But holy shit, when you meet him in person, he's an asshole.
Is he the guy from Dust to Dawn? Right, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Sex Machine.
Yes. Sex
Yeah.
Machine. Yep.
Yeah, I hear good and bad stories. So
I've never
He's a
heard
legend.
anybody have a pleasant experience with him at a convention. I've seen the guy 4 times at 4 different conventions. And he's always been the same rude, mean person.
well, maybe that's
But
where his creativity. That's where he pulls his creativity from for all them
I don't
ugly
know. But,
effects.
I don't know. But all I know is when he talked to him on camera, he's the nicest guy. You're thinking like, wow, Tom Savini's going to be at the con. I can't wait to go up there and talk to him and say thanks for everything and just something signed. And you go up there, it's like, it's like, oh, well, what happened?
That's good
What
acting.
happened?
That's fun.
But he did the effects for Friday the 13th, and there was some hard effects work on there. They had to put Kevin Bacon, in they had to do stuff with him, and then the axe in the head and the decapitation, but he really did a nice job with that.
I wonder how much of his work we truly saw, because even I don't know if you guys know, there are like a variety of cuts out there of that movie. I've seen like 3 different cuts of Friday the 13th where there's more gore in some of them, and then remember the MPA cut a lot of that gore out too. So I just wonder how much of his work we actually really saw. We probably missed some good stuff too.
True.
Yeah. I think there's like on my version, there's a theatrical cut and an uncut. And Al mentioned he saw the uncut, and it's like
I watched the uncut. There is a little bit more blood and gore, but it's nothing like super crazy. Like nothing extra that I really remember.
VHSs, man. I keep telling people we it's been so long in between since we watched those VHSs, but I knew they were missing stuff. A lot of movies, even up to the Scream era, are missing a lot of gores in those tapes, but not in our discs.
Yeah.
So
true.
True. So I guess the real big question, I know a lot of people. I mean, we could talk about this probably with every episode, because I'm sure there'll probably be something new to report on it every week now. But everybody's talking about which will there be another Friday the 13th movie made? Yeah, that's a really good question. Not so fast. Not so fast. You would think so, but Sean Cunningham, the director or the producer, Sean Cunningham, and Victor Miller got into a very bitter legal fight. Victor Miller wanted to end the character. He wanted to terminate the rights to the character. He wanted to put it to bed. And so Sean Cunningham sued him, saying that he didn't own the rights to the character. He was a hired gun. And he didn't create. And obviously that was right. Even Sean Cunningham,
They're both right. Sean Cunningham owns the rights to Mother Voorhees in the original Friday 13th, but I would agree that the other guy owns the rights to Jason. And I think that's where it differs. It's just like,
he owns the right to Jason, the first movie, but Sean after that, it's all Sean Cunningham. But Victor Miller also owns the domestic rights to Jason. So it's like, yes, you could make a movie, but if you release it here, then you have to go through him, or to release it here in the United States. I mean, you could make a movie.
Worked it out. It's been worked out. It's just that it's going to take a while to finalize. They said we're definitely getting him back, but it's going to take a few years. But he's coming.
Yeah, it really is, because right now the way because it was a protracted legal battle, and there's a lot of hurt feelings, and I don't necessarily think to me, if it's really Sean Cunningham that needs to go to him and really apologize, it's not Victor Miller. Victor Miller. I mean, he got sued, and I felt bad for him. I really did. I think I think he thought that he was going to get squashed. But the court said no. This is his creation. You get it. You get Jason after the first movie. I mean, they get Jason after the first movie. The hockey match.
Which is
and
the iconic Jason. I mean, for even
Right.
casuals, like the horror fans know Mom, but it's all about Jason.
But the fact is that Victor Miller owns the Jason Voorhees name.
Mhm.
That's his character. So I mean, yes, you could sit there and
Right,
put
he
another
created
guy. You just couldn't call him Jason. You couldn't call him Voorhees. Yeah, you could sit there and you can bring him out right now, but you couldn't call him Jason.
There's there's loopholes, and they necessarily don't
Huh?
have to know his name. There's loopholes, like all right,
Yeah,
for instance,
I was thinking that they could completely reboot the series, and I don't think I don't know if they change his name or not, but I think in good faith, the fans wouldn't go for that.
well,
The fans wouldn't.
the way they did the superhero, there was rights for Superman a long time fighting rights over that, and that's a lot of reason why we never got a movie. And I remember on Smallville, they got around with that by just saying he's Superman, or they'll put another X on Lex Luthor's name. There's easy ways around it. They can do it.
Yeah, they called him the Blur. So yeah, you're right.
There's ways.
Yeah, they couldn't call him Superman in the series.
And then
Even
towards the
though-
end,
even though-
they did do it. They spaced it though. They say he's Superman. They would do stuff like that, or they put the Lex Luthor. They weren't allowed to use that name, so they put another X on his name. So that's not copyrighted. Like two X's on Lex. There's ways around it. They can work it out. It's just is that ethical? Is that going to look right? But they can do it if they really want to.
I don't think it'd be in their best interest to be unethical. I think it'd be in their best interest and for the fans to just see if they can patch it out. I think he needs to apologize, because Sean Cunningham basically said in his earlier interviews that Victor Miller was part of the team. He said that he went up, he approached him and says I want to make a horror movie, and let's work together. And it's like, yeah, he knew Victor, so he went up there and they worked together. It's not like it's like it's I don't know. I don't know what happened to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think, Al? I think it sounded to me like Victor Miller wanted to put the character to bed. I think they approached him about doing another one, and he didn't want to do it. He didn't want the character to come back. He just wanted to let it go.
I think ultimately, money's going to talk, and he's going to realize how much more he'll make with another movie.
Yeah, but how many movies has he already made? He's got to be like a multi-millionaire several times over by now.
Probably, but
some people are stubborn. They don't want their creativity messed with. I mean, but can I say this? In a perfect world, I'm for it. Whoever created it, it should go to them. It's their thing. But in all fairness, like as fans and everybody else that's not the creator, for us not to get Jason in some capacity is just like so, because it's a great character. It's a legacy character, and for us not to have him anymore, it would feel selfish in a way too. It's just like. So it's like on a perfect world, you want to say, yes, he is right. And he technically, the creator is right. But at the same time, it's just like, we got to have more Jason. So I don't know who to side with there.
Well, this is. What do you think, Al? Are you ready for part 2?
I think we may have to do a part 2.
I think so too. But based on our chat here and our friends that came out and support us, I think that part 2 has to happen. Part 2, which is really it's pretty badass. Part 2 is a really fun movie,
and it's been a long time since I've seen part 2.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me too. I've been holding off on that till this week before I watched it. And we will see the appearance of Amy Steele for that movie. Yes, part 2.
Far better.
Now, where do you guys rank part one in the series? Like, do you rank it in toward the higher end or the lower end or in the middle?
Last for
Really?
me. Yeah, I'm just now liking it. Like before I rewatched it, I was like, hey, yeah, you can have that movie. It was the worst for me. It felt cheaply made. I understand the time and what they were trying to do, and I respect it. But it just, two is hard for me too. I got number two right behind it, but number one for me is the worst. Still a great fan, but it's the worst for me.
And what about you, Patrick?
Well, it's overall for the importance of the series. I think there's been better ones made. But as far as the table sitter goes, I put it up there. I think it's probably be, because I'm going to be rewatching these all over again. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until I see a few more before I can put this in perspective.
Well, how about you give us your feeling now, and then when you watch them all, you just go back. You write down what you feel right now, and then you do a recap after you've seen them all. You do,
Well,
do a summary.
I have to sit there and say this is my. I would have to sit there and say this is my favorite right now, because that's the first. It's the one I've seen.
I mean, okay, out of a 1 to 10, what on your scale for liking movies, a 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
Oh, this one. I give this a solid. I give this a solid 7, for sure. I mean, yeah, definitely. It's pretty. It's well made. It's well filmed. It has great effects. I mean, you got Tom Savini doing the effects. Like I said, I only had really one little gripe with it, and that's nothing. It's just it's just one hiccup. But overall, I thought this was a very solid movie. And it held up really well. That's the one thing about it. It holds up. I mean, it's still it does.
It is aging differently. It's surprisingly, you would think it would age badly, but I think where we're at today, I think our appreciation level as fans, we appreciate it more for some reason. If you asked this question 10 years ago, I think we wouldn't appreciate it as much as we would today.
What's funny? I mean,
maybe not.
I was going to ask you, Al, see if you agree with me. Do you think it ages well because it's practical effects versus CGI effects?
I think that has something to do with it, for sure. But I think overall, I think it's the characters, because it's basic characters, basic likable characters that are still relevant today.
Yeah.
And so I really think that's really why it's still so relevant now, because you can watch it now and still relate with all of these people. You can watch, and then it's 42 years old now.
Yeah,
it's the purity.
That's the staying power. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's the purity of the character. Most people will always, that are fans of this movie, will always say it's about what it means to the franchise, and that's what they love the most about it and where it started it. So I think it's the purity that got people hung up on it.
Yeah. So I think Vanessa says it best. I guess we need to rewatch the rest, and we'll see where it goes. For me personally, right now I rank it kind of right in the middle, because there's a few I like a lot more, and there's definitely a few I like a lot less. So, however, on this rewatch, I actually did change my ranking a little, and I pushed it up. I pushed it up further to the top. So
right.
We'll see how we'll see as we go on how that stays, and I'll probably change it every time I watch one. So who knows?
It got better. It did get better for me. It did anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're going to end this. So, does anybody have anything they'd like to say that's coming up? Patrick, what do you have coming up, buddy?
Oh, okay. I got Dollar Tree Theater dropping tomorrow night. I hope I survive that movie. I have a feeling that once people see what I reviewed, I might not make it back. I might be stuck in Camp Christmas Lake next week. Because I might be hiding from everybody with their pitchforks and fire. And then interview-wise, we're interviewing the lovely Jennifer Tochi on Tuesday. That's our
Yay.
first Women in Horror Month. So we're going to interview Jennifer Tochi, and then we're interviewing a young actress named Tatiana Moranovic from No Tears in Hell. She'll be here on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the 3rd of March, we will have the delightful Dolores Wheeler will be with us on March 3rd for our first week of Women in Horror. That's all I got. Next week, next Sunday, I will be hosting part 2.
Yes. So next week, go to Patrick's channel. I did leave the link. Everybody's links are in the description, by the way. Cal, what's up with you, man? You have anything coming up?
Unfortunately, no. I'm trying to iron some things out and trying to get back on track with some stuff. I do have something planned with Pat and Katie. We was going to review a movie, but we still haven't ironed out when we're going to do that. Probably when Katie gets more settled, we'll probably get back to that. And just for me, I would love if you come over and check the content I have. I will be posting new content soon. I'm stuck at a hump, guys. I think you guys know in the YouTube world what it's like. I'm stuck at a number. So I would greatly appreciate your support. If you could get me over that hump, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yes, definitely go check out Cal. Very cool guy, very cool channel. Very happy to have him here with us today.
Yes.
And I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you guys in the chat. You guys have been outstanding. I can't thank you enough. You know, that was a real challenge for me when we decided to do it, open up with this series, was trying to come up with enough fresh, fun facts to keep you guys interested. And honestly, I think we did pretty good. I think we did all right.
Yeah.
Did
your thing. Yeah.
All right. So the only other thing I super have planned this week is To Be Tuesday. We'll go live at probably around 10 o'clock Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central. Me and Katie from Poppin' and Popcorn will be talking about the movie Space Ninjas. It is available on Tubi if you'd like to watch it. It is a pretty fun little movie. It's silly, but it's pretty fun. So we'll be chatting about that and hanging out for a little while on Tuesday night. And Tuesday is also Mardi Gras. So happy Mardi Gras, everybody.
Hey now.
And so other than that, we're gonna get out of here. So we'll see you guys next week. Remember, next week is on Patrick's channel. Have Cheetah Will View. And remember to stay spooky.